"It is more than ever a settled thing," said Lucien, and, considering that this remark was all that he was at that time called upon to make, he adjusted the glass to his eye, and biting the top of his gold-headed cane, began to make the tour of the apartment, examining the arms and the pictures. "Ah," said Monte Cristo, "I did not expect that the affair would be so promptly concluded." "Oh, things take their course without our assistance. While we are forgetting them, they are falling into their appointed order, and when, again, our attention is directed to them, we are surprised at the progress they have made towards the proposed end." "My father and M. Danglars served together in Spain, my father in the army and M. Danglars in the commissariat department." "It was there that my father, ruined by the Revolution, and M. Danglars, who never had possessed any patrimony, both laid the foundations of their different fortunes." "Yes," said Monte Cristo, "I think M. Danglars mentioned that in a visit which I paid him, and," continued he, casting a side glance at Lucien, who was turning over the leaves of an album. "Mademoiselle Eugenie is pretty, I think I remember that to be her name." "Very pretty, or rather, very beautiful," replied Albert, "but of that style of beauty which I do not appreciate. I am an ungrateful fellow." "You speak as if you were already her husband." "Ah," returned Albert, in his turn looking around to see what Lucien was doing. "Really," said Monte Cristo, lowering his voice, "you do not appear to me to be very enthusiastic on the subject of this marriage." "Mademoiselle Danglars is too rich for me," replied Mercier, "and that frightens me." "Bah!" exclaimed Monte Cristo, "that's a fine reason to give. Are you not rich yourself?" "My father's income is about 50,000 francs per annum, and he will give me, perhaps, 10 or 12,000 when I marry." "That, perhaps, might not be considered a large sum, in Paris especially," said the Count, "but everything does not depend on wealth, and it is a fine thing to have a good name, and to occupy a high station in society." "Your name is celebrated, your position magnificent, and then the Comte de Mercier is a soldier, and it is pleasing to see the integrity of a Bayard united to the poverty of a de Guesclin. Disinterestedness is the brightest ray in which a noble sword can shine." As for me, I consider the union with Mademoiselle Danglars a most suitable one. She will enrich you, and you will ennoble her. Albert shook his head, and looked thoughtful. "There is still something else," said he. "I confess," observed Monte Cristo, "that I have some difficulty in comprehending your objection to a young lady who is both rich and beautiful." "Oh," said Mercer, "this repugnance, if repugnance it may be called, is not all on my side. Whence can it arise, then? For you told me your father desired the marriage." "It is my mother who dissents. She has a clear and penetrating judgment, and does not smile on the proposed union." "I cannot account for it, but she seems to entertain some prejudice against the Danglars." "Ah," said the Count, in a somewhat forced tone, "that may be easily explained. The Comtesse de Mercer, who is aristocracy and refinement itself, does not relish the idea of being allied by your marriage with one of ignoble birth. That is natural enough." "I do not know if that is her reason," said Albert. "But one thing I do know, that if this marriage be consummated, it will render her quite miserable." "There was to have been a meeting 6 weeks ago in order to talk over and settle the affair, but I had such a sudden attack of indisposition." "Real?" interrupted the Count, smiling. "Oh, real enough. From anxiety doubtless. At any rate they postponed the matter for 2 months. There is no hurry, you know. I am not yet 21, and Eugenie is only 17, but the 2 months expire next week." "It must be done." "My dear Count, you cannot imagine how my mind is harassed. How happy you are in being exempt from all this." "Well, and why should not you be free, too? What prevents you from being so?" "Oh, it will be too great a disappointment to my father if I do not marry Mademoiselle Danglars." "Marry her then," said the Count, with a significant shrug of the shoulders. "Yes," replied Mercer, "but that will plunge my mother into positive grief." "Then do not marry her," said the Count. "Well, I shall see. I will try and think over what is the best thing to be done. You will give me your advice, will you not, and if possible extricate me from my unpleasant position?" "I think," Rather than give pain to my dear mother, I would run the risk of offending the Count. Monte Cristo turned away, he seemed moved by this last remark. Ah, said he to Debray, who had thrown himself into an easy-chair at the farthest extremity of the salon, and who held a pencil in his right hand and an account book in his left, what are you doing there? Are you making a sketch after Poussin? Oh, no, was the tranquil response, I am too fond of art to attempt anything of that sort. I am doing a little sum in arithmetic. In arithmetic? Yes, I am calculating, by the way, Mercier, that indirectly concerns you, I am calculating what the House of Danglars must have gained by the last rise in Haiti bonds, from 206 they have risen to 409 in 3 days, and the prudent banker had purchased at 206, therefore he must have made 300,000 livres. That is not his biggest scoop, said Mercier. Did he not make 1,000,000 in Spaniards this last year? My dear fellow, said Lucien, here is the Count of Monte Cristo, who will say to you, as the Italians do, Denaro e santita, meta della meta, money and sanctity, each in a moiety. When they tell me such things, I only shrug my shoulders and say nothing. But you were speaking of Haitians? Said Monte Cristo. Ah, Haitians, that is quite another thing. Haitians are the écarté of French stock jobbing. We may like bouillotte, delight in whist, be enraptured with Boston, and yet grow tired of them all. But we always come back to écarté. It is not only a game, it is a hors d'oeuvre. M. Danglars sold yesterday at 405, and pockets 300,000 francs. Had he but waited till today, the price would have fallen to 205, and instead of gaining 300,000 francs, he would have lost 20 or 25,000. And what has caused the sudden fall from 409 to 206? Asked Monte Cristo. I am profoundly ignorant of all these stock jobbing intrigues. Because, said Albert, laughing, one piece of news follows another, and there is often great dissimilarity between them. Ah, said the Count, I see that M. Danglars is accustomed to play at gaining or losing 300,000 francs in a day. He must be enormously rich. It is not he who plays, exclaimed Lucien, it is Madame Danglars, she is indeed daring.